Jeremy Scahill asked Jesse Jackson about the Afghanistan escalation that Barack Obama was pushing, where he said he thinks Dr. King would have supported that. Do you agree?
The escalation in Afghanistan, that Dr. King would have supported that. Now, there's a way to say that you could support that in this day and age. I don't know if Dr. King would have supported the escalation in Afghanistan, because Martin Luther King Jr., after all, is a moral leader and a political figure insofar as he's dealing with the distribution of resources. He's not a politician. So I think Martin Luther King Jr. would have been a handful for any president now, including Barack Obama. It would have been interesting, and I obviously, as a surrogate of Senator Obama, and have supported him from the very beginning because I've known him for a number of years, but to contend that Martin Luther King Jr. Would support the intensification in Afghanistan would be problematic. I think that Mr. Obama himself said, when asked the question before, during the South Carolina debate, tell us why Martin Luther King Jr. would support you. He said he wouldn't. He wouldn't support any presidential candidate. He would get America as a public to hold me accountable, because change happens from the bottom up, not the top down.
Barack Obama said you don't protect Israel and deter Iran just by talking tough in Washington. Yeah,
well, obviously, Mr. Obama is conscious of, making certain that security for Israel is paramount for a variety of reasons, too complex, all of which to parse here. But I think that obviously he's conscious of the fact that Israel's place and prominence in American foreign policy is a given. And his argument to defend them is something that has been problematic to many people, as well as the fact that the difficulty of having balanced discourse, rhetoric, and dialogue in America about Palestine and Israel, and the relationship between those two competing forces in that region, and Israel's security, as well as the Palestinian security in that area. It's a very difficult and tricky way.
I want to turn to a part of Dr. King's speech 45 years ago, August 28, 1963.
The marvelous new militancy which has engulfed the Negro community must not lead us to a distrust of all white people. For many of our white brothers, as evidenced by their presence here today, have come to realize that their destiny is tied up with our destiny. They have come to realize that their freedom is inextricably bound to our freedom. We cannot walk alone. And as we walk, we must make the pledge that we shall always march ahead. We cannot turn back. There are those who are asking the devotees of civil rights, when will you be satisfied? We can never be satisfied as long as the Negro is the victim of the unspeakable horrors of police brutality. We can never be satisfied as long as our bodies, heavy with the fatigue of travel, cannot gain lodging in the motels of the highways and the hotels of the city. We cannot be satisfied as long as the Negro's basic mobility is from a smaller ghetto to a larger one. We can never be satisfied as long as our children are stripped of their selfhood and robbed of their dignity by signs stating for whites only. We cannot be satisfied as long as a Negro in Mississippi cannot vote and a Negro in New York believes he has nothing for which to vote. No, we are not satisfied, and we will not be satisfied until justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream.
Dr. Martin Luther King 45 years ago, like a mighty stream, taking on those issues.
Yeah. It's remarkable. A lot of people forget that he dealt with those issues.
Barack Obama is not opposed to the death penalty. Your thoughts on that? You have a brother who's in jail for life?
Yes,
for murder.
yeah.
A crime he says he didn't commit.
Exactly. And obviously that, thank God that the death penalty did not exist in Michigan, because he might be on death row right now. So it's interesting, Barack Obama's, response to the Supreme Court's ruling earlier this year. Myself, obviously, with my brother in prison, I see this from a perspective where so many people who are innocent, may be sent to death. The Innocence Project with Barry Schenck and others in Illinois has proved that there have been hundreds of, especially African-American prisoners, who are not fairly treated. So to me, the death penalty, along with the prison industrial complex, along with the making of money on the backs of the incarceration of Black and Latino men and increasingly poor white people, is a huge problem in American culture.
And your thoughts on Barack Obama supporting the death penalty? Do you think he understands this issue of the disparate effect, even if you believed in the death penalty, that it has on particularly people of color in this country?
Oh yes, I think that he's conscious of that. I think he wrestles with that. There's no question about that. I don't think it's an easy conclusion he comes to. I think that the eyebrow raising occasioned by his suggesting that the death penalty might be applicable to arenas outside of somebody consciously and deliberately murdering someone versus the brutal raping, undeniably, of a child was certainly very, very curious to many. But I think he's quite conscious of this racial disparity, because when he was in the Illinois State Senate, he was conscious of racial profiling. He was conscious of the untoward effects. And of course, being in Illinois, you couldn't help but understand what the governor was doing with prisoners who were on death row.
That's right. George Ryan.
Exactly, Brother Ryan.
Commuting all their sentences.
Yes, 100 of them.
Finally, we only have less than a minute, but Hurricane Katrina, you wrote a book about it, Come Hell or High Water, today, the 3rd anniversary of Hurricane Katrina.
It's stunning. I looked at Wendell Pierce on your interview there, and here it is that this nation 3 years later still hasn't ponied up, hasn't taken seriously the lives and the interests of these people. And he said something like $300 million there, maybe as much as $500 million that's not been distributed to the people who need it. And when the monies went to that area, they were given in disproportionate numbers to Mississippi and other places where people were doing a bit better, had a bit more economic support than those who are still vulnerable in New Orleans.
And yet Democrats are in charge in both houses.
Well, there's no question about it, and it's a shame of the nation.
You think it would change under Barack Obama?
I would hope so. But as Mr. Pierce said, nobody's exempt. The push for Barack Obama to become president is huge and it's wonderful, but nobody is exempt. And yes, but I happen to think it would change.
Michael Eric Dyson, I want to thank you for being with us. Professor of Sociology at University of Pennsylvania and now at Georgetown. I want to thank you for being with us. His books, Come Hell or High Water, also April 4th, 1968, Martin Luther King Jr.'s death and how it changed America. He has many others as well. That does it for the show. Democracy Now! Produced by Mike Berkshire, Dokadus, Angelique Comet, Nicole Salazar, Steve Martinez, Hani Massoud, Aaron Mate, and Robbie Karen, Mike DeFilippo, Peter Curry's our engineer. Special thanks to Dennis Moynihan, Elizabeth Press, Jeremy Scahill, Rick Rowley, Jackie Suin, Becca Staley, Hugh Grant, Samantha Chamblay. Happy birthday, Malia Brooker, Margaret Nelson, Lee Burek, Nathaniel Reeder, Kevin Price, Rebecca Kofsky, Daniel Summer, Cindy Coder, Lillian Marsh, the whole team here at Free Speech TV who has been hosting us for the week. Go to our website at democracynow.org. I'm Amy Goodman. Thanks for joining us.